everybody, and welcome back to another video. You guys really liked my last reading your wings for our headcanons video, so I decided to do a part 2. Obviously, I can't read every single headcanon because I got well over 300 of them, which I was not expecting, but I'll be including some of my favorites and the ones that stood out to me most. Also, before the video starts, huge shout out to my patrons, Crazy Roblox Man, LordIsopod, and DragonLover95. Thank you so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Also, if you guys don't know what a headcanon is, here's a Merriam-Webster definition. Probably my favorite headcanon ever was one sent by Grigory Rasputin. When Turtle needs help writing a scene, he'll go to Keebly for the humor, Winter for the emotional content, Peril for the action, Moon for the thoughts and flashbacks, and Kinkajou for the romance. I honestly love this one. To be honest, we need more Turtle headcanons. He's one of my favorite characters in this series, and I'd love to imagine him doing this. It literally seems like something he would do. Lucy Lemon commented that beetle wings had harder, larger, and tougher scales, similar to beetle shells. This is honestly such a great concept, and I can totally picture beetle wings as having these kinds of tougher scales. It would certainly be helpful when dealing with all of the bugs that originally inhabited Pantala. The Drawling Dragon said that as rainwings grow older, their frills become more floppy and just hang on the sides of their heads. Okay, this is so cool. Now that I'm thinking about it, I did imagine dragons like Randu and Mangrove as having really big and floppy frills, as well as darker tone scales. And when I saw the graphic novels, they were just how I imagined them. Garlic Salt mentioned how there could be the possibility of silkwings and rainwings producing more serotonin, or the happy chemical in your brain, compared to the other tribes. And this seems totally true. It would explain why they're such docile tribes. I know their lifestyles and habits play a part into that, but having a scientific reason would also explain a lot about those two tribes. Moon brought up how Kinkajou is traumatized by Anemone and chanting her to love Turtle, and every time she was across on a dragon, she can't tell if it's real or not, worried she's been enchanted. I really like this idea. The whole plot detail of Anemone literally enchanting another dragon's feelings just felt really glossed over in the books, and I think it would be important to show how that can mess with somebody. It would be a very scary feeling to think your love for someone could be entirely fake, and I definitely think it could play a part in Kinkajou and Turtle probably not ever getting together. QX commented that leafwing scales slightly turn brown as they get older, just as actual leaves do. I'm a huge fan of leafwing headcanons, such as the idea of them changing colors with the seasons, so I fell in love with this one. Young leaflings would be all green, adult ones would have small brown patches, and elders would be almost, if not entirely, different shades of brown. Honestly, just any additional lore or tribe information would make the leafwings a pretty cool tribe. Breezap said that if an icewing were to marry a silkwing flamesilk, that their dragonette could have the possibility of being an ice silk. They could shoot icy strands of silk from their spinnerets that freezes mid-air, could even use it to trap dragons or freeze small animals. This is literally such a neat concept, and I need for this to be canon. Just Tired mentioned how Nightwings could have bat-like wings and even use them to grab things. I know Nightwings are based on Komodo dragons, but let's be honest. Having them based on both bats and Komodo dragons would be so cool. They already have similar lifestyles, and I'd love to see this explored in the series. Sunbreaker, Queen of Bronze, brought up that there are some seamings who live deep underwater in trenches that only speak aquatic. They also say that seamings don't have blue blood, but rather they have bioluminescent gel in their stripes that can leak out, which made Luna think it was blood, even though it was just the blue gel. Both of these are super, super cool, and I can picture them as being canon 100%. It would be pretty interesting to see different underwater seeming civilizations, especially ones that Coral and the other members of the tribe don't pay too much attention to. They might have almost no idea what's been going up on the surface. And as the seeming gel part, that would make a lot of sense. Plus, it would just be awesome. Debris commented that Midewings can grow small bits of moss in between their scales from being sedentary for so long, and I love this. I'd like to think that older mudwings tend to have more moss due to how difficult it is to move around with such large bodies. Younger dragons typically move around more and fight, meaning the chances of them having things grow between their scales are pretty rare. Still, if it happens, it's just a regular thing in their tribe and nobody pays much attention to it. When Queen Moorhen becomes older, I can imagine her just sitting in her throne room most of the time and barely moving due to her large size and age. There would be a lot of moss and other small plants growing between her scales as well. Typically, being this way indicates wisdom due to age. Bloodwings might find it honorable to be this way, and I imagine them as being very respecting of their ancestors and the wisdom they possess. X Icy Wolf Wings X said that sea-wing bioluminescent scales glow differently based on their moods. For example, happiness would show in a regular glow, anger would be a bright flash, sadness would be a slow, dim blink, fear would cause the glow to flicker, and so on. This would bring a lot more emotion into the tribe as a whole, and I honestly love it. Alpha Wolf Snowy brought up how albinism and other genetic disorders regularly exist in dragons, and they could be cast out of the tribe or even killed for their mutations. This made me think of something that I can totally picture as happening right back in Darkstalker's age, or maybe still happening up to the beginning of the series. Dragons, especially Nightwings, would see any sort of mutation or abnormality as an animus curse, and you would be put to death for the endangerment of the tribe. This would fit them, as their intense fear of Darkstalker could drive them to take drastic measures against anything like that ever happening again. Amethyst commented that before Sandwings get their venom, they could have this substance in place that could cause stinging to wounds and induce nausea, vomiting, etc. It wouldn't be fatal, but it would hurt a lot. This would be a great concept for Tui to introduce to the series. I honestly really like it, and I think it would be helpful for Dragonette Sandwings to still practice self-defense and begin to study how to use their barb when it fully grows. And finally, Union Air brought up how Rainwings use their wings to climb trees because they have tiny little talons on the tips and middle of their wings in order to help make for good grip. This would totally make sense. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you to everybody who submitted a comment. I read and appreciated every single one of them. It was so hard to only pick a few for this list. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.